All right, on the line with us, we have Sarah Spain of ESPN. Sarah, welcome to the War Room. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. We've been wanting to talk to you for a while, since we saw you in Chicago about a month or so back. So we're really glad that you took a few minutes out of your day to come into the War Room and sit on the hot seat for a minute. Jimmy.
Well, it's the least that I could give you since you guys were in the front row of that Blogs with Balls, and we kept using you as examples for every time we needed to talk about a dude. So you guys kept
using me.
So now I take it now.
you guys were really brutal on B. Austin that day, but he had thick skin, so he was okay with it.
He was just in front looking so nice and smiley. It just seemed like a good guy to take advantage of.
Sarah, how are you?
I'm pretty good, man. I'm reacting to this Derrick Rose news. I'm reacting to my Cubs letting me down.
There's a lot going on. Okay, so you know what? Before we even get into the sports, there's something that I have to ask you. A lot of our listeners love sports, but they also love to hear about the sports business. So just a quick background on how you actually got into the sports business. Was it something that you always wanted to do? What did you major in college? Like, how did you get to this point where you're at now?
Who is Sarah Spain?
I had sort of a circuitous route, but I'll try to keep it quick because I know we're limited. I grew up playing sports. I was always into sports. I was already 6 feet tall by the time I was about 12. So I was one of those people that, thank God, I was athletic. Otherwise, I would have been even more awkward as a kid. But I went to Cornell. I did track and field. I did heptathlon. And I also played basketball and field hockey, got recruited for both of those for college. It was just sort of a matter of whether I wanted to do Division I and what school I wanted to go to. So I decided on Cornell, did track there, and I was an English major. I always loved writing. And I actually grew up wanting to be on Saturday Night Live or Broadway or some sort of entertainment side of things. But because I did sports all the time, they were usually around the same time as all the school plays. And same even at Cornell, the a cappella groups and all the plays at Cornell were at the same time as either practice or competition. So I decided to focus on sports for that limited stretch that I could, knowing I wasn't going to go on to the Olympics or whatever. And then by the time I got to graduating, I said, I want to do entertainment. And I had taken some acting and dialect classes and stuff in college. So I moved out to L.A., and I did acting and worked in a restaurant, which is what they always tell you to do when you're trying to be an actress. Took some classes, did the whole Second City Improv Conservatory, and eventually transitioned into sports. It's a long story, but basically I got started doing it and realized I should have been doing that all the time. And just to do it the way I wanted. There weren't a lot of women in the industry, and there certainly weren't any that I could see that got to be funny and sarcastic. You were either kind of a bubbly sidelines reporter that didn't get much time, or you were a very serious anchor person, and I'd always wanted to entertain. So, but I decided I was going to do it, and I was going to do it my way, so I started writing for some blogs for free. I started auditioning for stuff in L.A., and eventually decided to move back to Chicago to cover the teams I grew up covering and to be in a city that really values sports coverage and really wants you to know your stuff. Worked for a startup website in Chicago for about a year. Did some freelance stuff for Big Ten Network, for WGN Radio, for a couple other places. Did a blog for Chicago Tribune's smaller, branched off website, and then eventually joined ESPN Radio as an update anchor in 2010, and ESPNW about 7 months later at the end of 2010, and then it's just been all ESPN since. So that's about it.
You paid your dues.
I did.
Yes, you
I
did.
And I forgot. I worked behind the scenes in LA for a couple of years at Fox Sports Network. So I was a PA assistant, and then I was a associate producer doing teases and opens and music videos and stuff for a nightly highlight show. So I did get that good stuff behind the scenes, and that was actually a great job because I had to watch every single sport and log the action as it happened and decide what the highlights were and what the anchor people would say about the highlights. So that was great for someone who loves sports but had never worked in them before, so it forced me to do NASCAR and golf and hockey and stuff that I like to watch but I didn't really have that much knowledge of. So it was a good first gig.
Notice, guys, she said she wanted to move back to a real sports town, so shot fired at L.A. I peeped that.
No, I mean, it's just not the same. It's not the same, and especially as far as a woman talent getting started out, I just found that there was a lot of really beautiful women in clubbing dresses with fake tatas, and I found that what I knew and what I brought to the table as far as intellect and wit and everything else would be a lot more appreciated somewhere like Chicago, where they don't really care if you're hot if you mess with their teams, right? Like, that's the most important thing. So, LA gets big during the playoffs, and there's certainly a lot of really talented women and men that work in LA, but getting started there just didn't seem like the right spot for me.
Okay. Well, Sarah, this is Devin. You touched on briefly, and, what you were saying, you touched on women in sports. Now, I know that you've probably spoken about this until you were blue in the face, but about 2 months ago, you and Julie DeCaro sat down with, I believe it was Just Not Sports, for a video about the social media harassment that women in sports media face. I watched the video numerous times. They had random men read some hashtag more than mean tweets that you guys received during your time. I guess they were pretty recent tweets. Some of those tweets, in my opinion, were downright nasty. And I've been around you a few times at the Blog Ball the last 2 years, and you seem like an easygoing person that really doesn't take things or even yourself too seriously. But some of that stuff, in my opinion, well,
it was out of control.
From my perspective, it really had to bother you. Like, how much did some of those cowardly tweets get under your skin?
Yeah, I have I think so, a really good sense of humor. I like messing with people. I like, joking around. I think Twitter can be really difficult for people to get humor because there's no tone of voice. They don't get to see your face. Right. So a lot of people, it's tough sometimes interacting on that platform. But I'm by no means a stuck-up person who can't go with the flow, nor am I a weakling. A lot of people said, why'd you make this PSA? Quit crying about it and go do another job. And I'm like, I'm not crying. Trust me. I've been dealing with this for years. In fact, if you watch the video, Julie and I are so used to it that it doesn't even affect us. And the nice guys that they called in that had no idea what was coming to read these tweets were the ones that were affected by it because they didn't know that this is what we go through. Yeah, because they didn't know this is what we go through every day. And sad to say, I did a piece for NPR right after that, and I went back and found an email that I sent to ESPN, my bosses at ESPN, right when I started on the radio. And so I was pretty fresh. I'd seen bad YouTube comments or mean message board stuff, but that was about it. And, just a couple of days into starting on the radio at ESPN in Chicago, I got this one guy who was just going to all the different platforms that I had, Facebook, my website, Twitter, everywhere, posting the worst things. And I messaged my boss and said, I don't know if we should worry about this guy, but he seems to be really unhinged. And so they called security and they checked his IP address and they, went into all this stuff. And I look back now and I think that guy wouldn't even faze me, which is so sad. We're so used to it by now that, it gets to the point where people are saying things like, I hope your boyfriend beats you. I hope your dog gets hit by a car. I hope somebody Ray Rices you. I hope Floyd Mayweather chooses you as your next victim. And I just roll right through it. And that's sad that I'm so used to it by now. It really shouldn't be like that because I'm not saying stuff that should get people that angry with me. In fact, most of the time that people come after me with that stuff, it's when I'm talking about issues of domestic violence, of sexual. And if you look at something like the Baylor case, people at the beginning of that were like, everyone's overreacting, this is bullshit, stop going after Bryle, stop going after whatever. And then you break it open and realize this is massive institutional failure.
Culture.
And if none of us ever try to say anything, we just let it go. It's like Penn State all over again. And it's just sad to me that those are the things that get people so angry with me, is trying to speak up for the people that don't have protections and that aren't spoken for. But, yeah, it sucks, and, it's really frustrating to me. I think what we tried to point out in our conversations after the PSA hit was we're not saying that this doesn't happen to everybody else because everybody on the Internet, even the most beautiful woman in the world, has people on the Internet being like, you're ugly, you suck. But it's a different kind of vibe when it's women in a certain industry that's male-dominated. It's this idea of you don't even belong here. You don't deserve to have a voice. You don't deserve to be given a platform in any way. And that feels very different than, I hate you, I hope you die, which should feel worse. But instead it's the ones that seem to imply that we shouldn't even have a spot at the table. That's the most frustrating.
Man, this is B. Austin. Yeah. I have to say the biggest problem that I have with the internet is that it seems like anonymity or the sense of anonymity gives cowards false muscles, you know, and takes people to a place where they wouldn't possibly say these things to someone's face. And it's like, that really eats at me. We would be remiss though if we didn't mention, and you are on the hot seat. You know, there was some feedback from the piece, kind of mentioning, well, you know, Sarah had a incident when she was younger in 2007 with the Super Bowl, so she shouldn't have a voice. Talk to us a little bit about that. What happened there, and how was that misconstrued and taken out of context in terms of what you were trying to get across with the piece in April?
Yeah, I mean, that comes up a fair amount still every once in a while. Basically, it's another long story that I'll make short, but I wanted to go see the Bears in the Super Bowl. You know, I was super young when they went the last time, and so I thought, you know, I don't want to miss this. I'm going to go. So my friends and I all decided midway through that Saints game we were going to fly to Florida and make it happen. Then all my friends bailed. I had a flight. This was before you could, you know, rearrange things quite so easily, and I was super poor. So I had just spent my money to fly down to Miami. My friends all bailed. I was supposed to stay with a friend of mine from Cornell who it turned out lived 2 hours from Miami. He said he lived near Miami, which I guess 2 hours is near it, but not that near it. And then I started looking for tickets, and I thought in my naivete, having never tried to go, that they would be like $500, which at the time would have been a lot of money for me. No, it was more like $5,000. So I was like, oh, shit, like, what have I done? So I started talking to one of my bosses, you know, is Fox doing anything with the Super Bowl that I could go work? No, we don't have coverage this year. You know, talking to other friends of mine, does anyone have a connection? No, we don't have anything. And I was joking with my friend, I wish I could be like Screech, you know. Screech from Saved by the Bell was about to lose his house, and so he made a website and had people donate money to him, and he, like, sent them T-shirts. I'm like, but then again, why would anyone give me money just to go to the game? And I don't know HTML, so I wouldn't even know how to create a website, and I don't know search engine optimization to get people to see it, so what a terrible idea. And my friend was like, why don't you just go on eBay? Ha ha. And I was like, And I had dressed as a Bears cheerleader for Halloween, and my very small, cute, blonde friend had dressed like a football player. So the joke was I was the big, tall cheerleader. She was the tiny little football player. So I had that photo. I put it on eBay, and I said, hey, take me as a date to the Super Bowl. And I said, I'm not an escort. I'll buy your beer. I'll buy your food. I'll buy your everything. I'll sit on a peanut cart in the last row. There's got to be like a company that's got a suite where the people in it don't even care. Because they always say that about the Super Bowl. It's not even the real fans that are there. It's all the corporate stuff. And then I posted it on eBay and said, all right, I'm going to send this to a couple of radio stations and just be like, hey, look at this crazy girl. And then hopefully they'll do some sort of contest for me, or they'll give me tickets or something. You know, every year there's always people that find a way to, like, use that publicity. And this was well before things, like, quote-unquote, went viral. So it was kind of a random and out-of-the-blue thing to try to do. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, had over 500 emails. It had hit the New York Stock Exchange Instant Messenger. So a bunch of people that worked there were sending it to each other, hey, you should take this girl to the Super Bowl, whatever else. Did a couple radio interviews, and then it really blew up. So only 2 days after that, Axe body spray and like men's products contacted me and said, we'll send you and a couple girlfriends to the Super Bowl. We'll give you tickets, and you'll have a contest to pick a guy who is like the lucky Axe guy, like, you know, Axe gets guys girls, and you'll bring him. So we had a contest. We had this I looked at several thousand entries by myself. We picked a guy to come with us. Me and my two girlfriends, we got airfare, hotel, car service, game ticket, nights out with these awesome guys from Edelman, which is the PR company that was running the campaign for Axe. The guy, like, we're still friends with, and the Bears lost, and it was rainy, and that sucked. But in the meantime, it was a shitty one, yeah. In the meantime, I had done 30-plus interviews with, you know, Access Hollywood, Cold Pizza, WGN, B96, K-Rock, like all these different places. And I saved all the information for all the program directors, newspaper writers, everybody that I worked with. And I kind of just, after that, started messaging them every once in a while. Here's what I'm working on. You know, I'm hosting this fantasy football show, or I'm writing for this blog, or I'm doing whatever, just to get my name to them and remind them that I was already working in the industry. This is not like a fluke. I wasn't some attention whore. I wanted to go to the game. I did a funny stunt. It worked out, other than the fact that there were a bunch of blogs that said I was a attention whore prostitute. Other than that, it worked out. And
Wow.
Actually, the PR agency ended up getting the runner-up for the campaign of the year from PR Weekly because they got
Wow.
$2 million in ad equivalency for the equivalent of what they spent was $17,000. So, you know, they would have had to spend $2 million to achieve the range of eyeballs and attention and publicity for their campaign that as if they had, you know, and they only ended up spending $17,000. So it was actually widely reviewed by most people as like a really funny, great idea. Unfortunately, some people are still always going to assume it was much more salacious and not well-intentioned as it was.
So it sounds like it pretty much worked out for all parties involved except for the bitter folks.
The haters.
Who didn't get to go to the game.
Yeah, other than the haters. Yeah,
For the haters.
and the haters still bring up. And here's the thing: let's say it was salacious or there's something. It still doesn't invalidate me as a person. It still doesn't take away my voice. But especially since there was no, you know, evil or malice to it. It was just a funny, clever idea. I find it particularly obnoxious that people will try to use that as some sort of call, like I'm not allowed to have a voice, not allowed to be a feminist, I'm not allowed to be working in sports. Especially since my jobs are mostly writing and radio, neither of which is a visual medium. So I don't think that you get, you know, national radio shows on ESPN for a stunt that was over a decade ago.
Because you were in a bathing suit? They say all of this stuff?
Wow. Yeah, and I wasn't even in a bathing suit.
We're used to that.
I wasn't.
You know, we're not allowed to have
we're definitely
opinions on the NBA because we've never played in the NBA. So, you know, we get the same thing every day.
Well, and what's interesting is that I have a guy friend who works in the industry, and he actually legit used to be a stripper. And no one will ever know that or care or bring it up or even go looking for it. But every girl, you know, did she do a beauty pageant? Did she pose in a bikini once? Was she in a bikini on vacation somewhere where someone took a photo and now it's in circulation? You know what I mean? Like, there's a photo of me on vacation with my family that someone took off Facebook, and now it's, like, in the blog rotation. And people will send it to me and be like, how could you, like, want respect if you did this? And I'm like, I didn't do anything.
Damn.
That's a photo of me on vacation. Like, come on, guys.
The internet is out of control.
Yeah,
so
and
we gotta get
bullshit.
to sports. We gotta get to sports.
Sure.
We know you were born in Cleveland.
Wait, B, hold up. Wait, because Sarah just broke something. She basically said that Screech invented GoFundMe. I don't want to let that
slide. He did. Before he was in creepy porn and punching people. That guy was onto something.
Screech had
Shout
the
out
idea.
to Screech. Yeah. Shout out to Screech. We got to jump into the sports that we love. Cosa Nostra, the NBA. You were born in Cleveland. You cover Chicago sports. So let's talk about. Okay, LeBron brings it home for the land, and gets to be the prodigal son, while Derrick Rose is leaving town, and by all accounts probably won't ever be in that position to bring it home for Chicago. What's the pulse of the city? What's your reaction to the trade, and where are you rooting for LeBron? Talk about both narratives.
Yeah, I don't have any affiliation to Cleveland other than being born there because my family moved. I mean, I have a lot of family that still lives there, so I'm happy for my family that still lives there for sure. But I moved to Chicago when I was young, and I've always been a Chicago sports person. So, I'm happy for LeBron. I'm happy for the Cavs. I wouldn't say I was rooting for them. I didn't have a vested interest in that narrative coming true, but it is a great story, and it's great for the city. I'm just a little worried about us now that we don't have Cleveland as our doormat. We're going to, I guess, move on to Buffalo. Buffalo is going to be the one that gets all the heat now.
Cleveland will be back. He'll be back.
Yeah, well, the Browns are always there. The Browns are always going to give us material.
Right.
As for Derrick Rose, it's a sad story. It's a story of, unfulfilled potential. And he did a lot for the city despite never really being able to do what we expected of him. Just because there's always such a big Jordan hangover, and we're still stuck in the Jordan hangover. And he managed, just by being a hometown kid, by defying the odds as far as the Bulls' lottery chances, by winning an MVP, by getting them on a run. They were, up until this year when they didn't make it, they had the third longest playoff streak in the NBA of consecutive seasons making the postseason. So, he established a certain level of play as soon as he arrived. And injuries suck, and there's nothing he can do about it. I don't think he always said the right things to ingratiate himself to the city during his many injuries. but I respect what he did for the team, and I think it was the right move. I think the team, I don't know if Jimmy Butler's next. I'm a big Jimmy Butler fan, so I'd hate to see him go, but I also think there's something to be learned from the north side of town and the Cubs. Baseball and basketball are very different, but I do think sometimes you need to really blow something up and get really, really bad so that you can get really good, because just making it to the postseason and getting bounced in the first or second round every year, that's not enough in hoops. And
Sarah,
so
it's
the Bulls,
so interesting that you say that, because we are all from Philadelphia, so we're 76ers fans, and I've been trying to get B. Austin to go along with the process for the last 3 years now.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. It's going to happen,
I'm cool.
and when they get good, they're going to be good for a long time, because they're not just putting Band-Aids on the problem. They completely blew it up.
I mean, the problem with the Sixers is the process kept sputtering and restarting, and the choices that they made didn't necessarily all go together for their end goal. I think now they're in a decent position, and we'll see what they do going forward with Simmons and Embiid and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think that idea can be right. It's just a matter of executing it correctly. And I don't know if a lot of people in Chicago actually have a ton of faith in Garpax leading the way, or in Fred Hoiberg, and if Butler does stay, in the relationship between Butler and Hoiberg. So I don't have high expectations for the next few years. We also got LeBron James basically devouring the Eastern Conference for at least another couple of years. So that's why I think in some ways it's better for the Bulls to get young, be aggressive in their pursuit of youth and talent, so that once LeBron ages out and once they've got a better nucleus to work with, instead of, the Noahs and the Gasols and the older guys, that they'll have a chance to compete.
Exactly. For the teams in the Eastern Conference, there's no better time to blow your team up than right now.
Yeah.
And LeBron's last few years of being great, you do what you have to do, and then when he steps aside, you have a chance to be good for a long time. So yeah.
There's one positive. There's one positive with this whole D Rose drama. The whole story is that in a couple of years, this will make an amazing 30 for 30.
We'll see. I don't know. There's got to be a better ending for it to be a 30 for 30. You know what I mean? Or a really terrible ending. I think right now he's just another story. Like a Grant Hill, like a story of unfulfilled potential and injuries spoiling things. Brandon Roy. There's a bunch of dudes like this.
Yeah.
So unless he wins a title with Phil Jackson and Carmelo in New York, I don't know if we got 30 for 30 on our hands.
Hey, what if Dwight Howard comes and the whole thing just blows up and it's completely terrible?
Oh man. Yeah, Dwight Howard. I don't know. That talk about a guy with a wasted potential. Got some issues between the ears, and if you fix that and have the right attitude and everything else.
Yeah, he wasted life.
Yeah, he wasted life, but yeah, he's a guy that was in a great position and didn't have the right attitude and approach to the game to capitalize on it.
Okay, Sarah, the last thing before we get you out of here, let's go back to LeBron. We talked about how great of a story it is but for LeBron individually, coming back and actually winning one for Cleveland, not just that team, but for the city. What does that do for his legacy? I mean, because there were still doubters out there. He went to Miami, was supposed to win a bunch of titles. They won 2, but, there's always going to be that, you went down there, teamed up to win some championships. You ran from Cleveland. But Jimmy likes to always say that, winning a championship in Cleveland is like winning 7 of them. What does this do for his legacy at this point?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that far. Now, I'll fully admit that I have a Jordan bias in that I get very protective about people who,
we all,
jump. Well, people who jump ahead and have, I saw so much hyperbole after the victory, and it was an incredible achievement, absolutely. But so much hyperbole about, he's the greatest ever now and blah, blah, blah. To me, huge accomplishment, winning it for Cleveland, coming back to his hometown, making good free agency decisions, even though they were criticized, to know that going to Miami was a good decision at the time, to know that coming back to Cleveland and putting together a roster that he liked, being able to fight back for that, awesome. Incredible story. I think it is a massive change for his legacy. It's interesting, Dan Le Batard was talking about how that game was tied for roughly 3 minutes or so near the stretch. It was like a 4-minute, 30-second stretch where the Warriors didn't score at all, and the Cavs basically got Kyrie Irving 3 and then one LeBron free throw in that stretch. So that Kyrie Irving 3 decided so much, right? Like if that final minute of the game had gone the way of the Warriors, you have them winning the best season ever, record-wise, et cetera. LeBron comes up short. Where does he go? Does he stay? And instead, that one shot, that 1 minute of play changes his entire legacy and the way people view him. And that's really powerful. And
basically, LeBron owes it all to Kyrie. LeBron owes it to Kyrie.
I don't begrudge him. I don't begrudge him anything as far as the accomplishment of it. But I think there's still plenty of debate to be had about where he falls, in terms of the greatest ever. And I think that's still Jordan. That's still never needing to get to 3-1 and coming back, never needing a Game 7 and coming back, never, as of a couple years ago, and I haven't looked at the stats for this season included, but, LeBron at one point averaged fewer points for a whole series than Michael Jordan's lowest point total for one game in any final series. Jordan averaged 41 for a whole series and had 41 in 4 straight games and dropped 55. So these stats are very impressive, but let's slow our roll a little on the GOAT.
See, but the funny thing is we all let people bait us into those conversations because personally, I don't think it's LeBron or Jordan right now.
Who you got?
It's Jordan for me,
Kobe?
but I just, people think because of this story, like you said, the hyperbole, I can't even say the word right now, has been so crazy in the last few days that, they're baiting people back into that conversation, either LeBron or Michael Jordan. And I don't even know if I think LeBron is that high on the totem pole yet.
Not better than Larry Bird.
We call them pom-poms. The prisoners of the moment will get overly hyped about anything they see, and then they forgot what all the other guys before, accomplished and how they mesmerized us the same way. So,
well, and it's also so tough to compare generations. Like, I guarantee there's people, who are frustrated about people who didn't get to see Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, those guys on a regular basis, and they say, it's just because I know that, I grew up with and raised, Jordan, so that's something to feel the most, biased towards. But I watched all of LeBron. Still goes to MJ.
Yeah. Okay, so before you go, you got to let everybody know how they can find you, how they can, follow you on social media, listen to your radio show, when they can see you on TV. Basically, do your commercial.
All right. Well, you can listen to me every Saturday, 12 to 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio with the Trifecta with my co-hosts Kate Fagan and Jane McManus. You can listen to my podcast. It's usually up every Tuesday on ESPN Radio, iTunes, everywhere else you find podcasts. It's called ESPNW Presents That's What She Said with Sarah Spain. You can watch me on Around the Horn, usually twice a week, depending on my schedule. You can read my column, That's What She Said, on ESPNW.com. And I think that's it. You can see me on SportsCenter. I'll be on tonight to talk about Derrick Rose and the Bulls, and then I'm usually on to cover a variety of different Chicago stuff.
Okay. Well,
good show.
Thank you so much for coming to join us for a few minutes. You are now definitely a family member of the War Room. So you're welcome to come back at any time and talk some sports with us. We hope you will.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah,
Thanks,
sorry
sir.
about earlier. Thank you guys for making a change for me. I appreciate it.
No problem.
No problem.
No problem.
All right, have a good night.
All right, you
Take care.
Sarah Spain, everybody, ESPN. Check her out on all the outlets that she just told you. You probably know where you can find her already.